or disagree, or both. Sometimes you hear a friend make an argument and it doesn't feel good to you. You just know what they're saying is off. Or sometimes you read an argument someone makes online and think, yeah, that's totally what I think too. But being able to explain why you agree or disagree with something is often a challenge. In this video, I'm going to go over how to do just that. Once you have identified an argument or a claim that a person or text is making, you need to be sure you do a few things before you can fully respond to what they're saying. First, you should be able to explain their claim in your own words to demonstrate you really understand it. And then you have to decide if you agree, disagree, or agree and disagree with that claim and be able to explain why. Let's break down those steps. The first step is essential and is often the hardest part of the whole process. If you can explain a claim in your own words, you clearly understand it. Explaining a claim in your own words is also called paraphrasing. You may have heard that word before. The problem is that many people don't fully understand what paraphrasing is. It's not just rearranging the words of the sentence. Instead, it's being able to explain an idea from a sentence in your own words. In the same way that you might explain to a friend what your sister said using your own words, you should be able to explain a claim from a text in your own words. If you can do that, you understand it. Now that you're sure that you get what the author is actually saying, the next step is to decide if you agree, disagree, or agree and disagree with their claim. Those are the three major options you have. If you agree with the author's claim, definitely say that. You can write, I agree with X that, or X makes an excellent point about. If you disagree with the author's claim, definitely say that too. You can write, X's claim that is inaccurate because, or I disagree with X that because. If you agree and disagree with the claim, that's great too. Maybe you find some part of their point convincing, but you don't fully buy in. In that case, you might write, X makes a great point that, but she doesn't consider. Or, while I agree with X's definition of, I don't agree that. Now, why do you agree or disagree with a claim? Isn't it just based on your gut? It might feel that way, but no. If you examine the claim carefully, you can pinpoint the reasons why. There are a lot of reasons why you might agree or disagree with someone's claim. I'm going to talk about two common reasons you might agree or disagree with someone's claim. One, based on the assumptions they make, and two, how they define key terms. Let's look at assumptions first. To make an assumption is to assume or to suppose to be the case without proof. We spend a lot of our time making assumptions, many of them good and necessary. For example, you assume your professor will attend class on time even though you didn't follow her out of her house. But it's good and normal to assume she'll attend class on time, or that, say, your apartment will be standing when you arrive home today, even though you don't technically have any proof that it will be. But often people make assumptions that are a bit of a stretch or aren't shared by other people. Making assumptions other people don't share can cause disagreement. For example, your friend might invite you out to a fancy restaurant assuming you can pay your share of the meal. She may not even be aware that she's making that assumption because assumptions are so embedded in our thinking. Why would she assume you can pay? Well, maybe she can pay her share so she doesn't really think about your circumstances and just assumes you can too. Therefore, you might disagree with her about her choice of restaurant. You might say, this restaurant is too expensive. Let's go somewhere else. The same applies to written texts. Anytime the writer is making a claim, they're doing so based on some assumptions they hold. There can be a lot of assumptions. Let's look at an example of a claim. The college should build another parking deck on campus. There are a lot of assumptions embedded in this claim. Students drive their own cars to campus and need a place to park. Is that true? Students want to drive their own cars to campus and park them. Is that true as well? Students can drive and have licenses. Parking decks are the best place to park cars. The college can afford to build a parking deck. The college would choose to pay for a dark parking deck rather than, say, a free shuttle. There are many, many more assumptions embedded in this one claim. But you get my point. If you can disagree with any of the assumptions in the claim, then you might disagree with all or part of the claim. Here are some questions to ask yourself when trying to decide if you agree or disagree with a claim. What assumption does the writer base their claim on? Spend some time unpacking them. Do you agree with all those assumptions? If not, you might disagree with their claim. If so, you likely agree with their claim. So if you don't agree with their assumptions, then you probably don't agree with their claim. A second reason you might disagree or agree with someone's claim is if you agree or disagree with how they're using their words or the meanings they give to words. Sometimes a writer defines a key term differently from how you define it. For example, I might say, I'm going to have a lot of fun tonight, and my definition of the word fun is spending 3 hours with my friends over, knitting the evening away. If you love knitting, you might agree with me and say, wow, you're really going to have a blast. If your idea of fun does not include knitting, you might disagree with me and say, when I think of fun, I think of the thrill of downhill skiing, not knitting. Definitions of words, especially abstract terms like fun, freedom, and integrity, matter, and folks often use them differently. In other words, think about whether you agree or disagree with how the writer is using key words in their sentence. If you think they are using a word differently from how you'd use it, then you might disagree with their definition of a term and also their argument. Try coming up with synonyms for their key terms. Maybe I say knitting is fun, but another way to describe knitting could be relaxing or calming. Is knitting really fun? Maybe you say downhill skiing is fun, but I might describe it as risky, and I might describe people who do it as thrill-seeking. Is it really fun? If you agree with how a writer uses the terms feminism or rights or love, then you likely agree with their overall claim. So again, when faced with a claim, be sure you can explain it in your own words. Decide whether you agree or disagree and think about assumptions and definitions. And be sure you can explain why you agree or disagree. From there, you'll want to use new additional evidence to support whether you agree or disagree. It's often good to listen to your intuition when it tells you something doesn't sound right. But when you have time and space to really reflect on why you agree or disagree with someone else's claim, this process can help you think about what kinds of assumptions you hold, why you think about things the way you do. Reflecting this way will help you build your critical thinking skills and get to know yourself better.